Someone says they're coming over, and the reaction happens before the thought even forms. It's not dramatic, it's not panic, it's subtle. A small tightening somewhere behind the ribs, a shallow breath you don't notice taking, a quiet internal shift, like a room inside you just got a little brighter, a little louder, a little less safe. You don't say anything about it. You smile. You say yes. You even mean it, at least on the surface. But somewhere deeper, something ancient and private pulls back. Because for you, home is not a place people casually enter. Home is where your nervous system finally stops negotiating with the world. Outside, you are constantly adjusting. You adjust your tone so it doesn't sound too cold. You adjust your face so it doesn't look too tired. You adjust your timing, your words, your reactions. Even when you like people, you are on. And being on is expensive. Most people never notice how much energy it costs to simply exist around others. But you do. Your body keeps score. So when someone enters your home, even gently, even lovingly, your system doesn't hear friend, it hears presence. And presence means awareness. Awareness means effort. Your home is the only place where effort drops to zero. That's why it feels sacred, not in a dramatic way, in a biological one. Your body learned over years that this space is where it can finally exhale fully, where your face doesn't need to arrange itself, where silence doesn't need to be filled, where you don't need to be interesting, warm, responsive, or okay. You can just be unobserved. And humans are not meant to be observed all the time. When someone comes over, that invisibility disappears. Even if they're kind, even if they say, "Don't worry about us," even if they sit quietly. Your system doesn't believe that invisibility is still allowed, so it switches modes, very quietly. Your shoulders lift a fraction, your hearing sharpens, your attention splits. Part of you stays with them, part of you watches yourself. That split is exhausting. And this is where guilt often enters, because you like these people. Some of them you love deeply. So why does your body act like something is wrong? Psychology has an answer most people never hear. Liking someone does not mean your nervous system experiences them as neutral. Connection and regulation are two different systems. You can crave closeness and still require distance to regulate. You can love deeply and still need solitude to survive. But society doesn't teach that nuance. Society teaches comfort with people is the measure of warmth, that hosting equals kindness, that opening your home is proof of your heart. So when your body resists, you assume something is broken in you. It isn't. Your body is doing exactly what it learned to do. Many people who hate having guests are not antisocial. They are hyper-aware. They notice shifts in energy the way others notice noise. They feel emotional temperature changes the way others feel weather. When someone enters their home, the emotional climate changes, not badly, just differently. And difference requires adjustment. Adjustment requires energy. That's why even a short visit can feel long. Not because of boredom, but because your system hasn't rested since they arrived. You might sit together, talk calmly, laugh even. But somewhere inside, a part of you is waiting. Waiting for the moment the door closes. Waiting for the silence to return. Waiting for your body to drop back into itself. And when that moment finally comes, when the lock clicks, when the air settles, the relief is immediate. Not joy, relief. Your shoulders drop without permission. Your breathing deepens without instruction. You didn't dislike the guest. You disliked the state you had to be in while they were there. This is something most people never separate. They think discomfort with hosting equals discomfort with people. But psychologically, it often equals discomfort with being seen. Being seen costs something, especially if growing up, being seen meant expectation. For many people, childhood homes changed when guests arrived. The rules tightened, voices shifted, parents performed, mistakes became embarrassing, silence became awkward. Children learned quickly, people in the house means pressure. Even if nothing terrible happened, the atmosphere changed. And the body remembers atmosphere more than events. So now, years later, your adult mind says it's fine, but your body remembers a different lesson. It prepares, it braces, not for danger, but for demand. Because guests, even loving ones, bring demand. Not spoken, not intentional, but present. Demand to be aware, demand to be appropriate, demand to maintain a version of yourself. Your home is usually where that demand disappears. That's why some of the warmest people feel the most drained by hosting. They are not cold, they are porous. They absorb, they mirror, they adjust automatically. Silence is how they clean themselves emotionally, and guests interrupt that cleaning process. This is also why these people often prefer meeting outside, cafes, parks, neutral spaces. In those places, they are already on. Nothing precious is being touched. Their inner world stays safely private. Their home remains intact. Because for them, home is not a social space. It's an inner boundary made physical. And boundaries are not walls, they are filters. People with strong internal worlds often protect them quietly, not by pushing others away, but by controlling access. This isn't selfishness, it's self-preservation. If this feels familiar, it doesn't mean you're difficult. It means your system values coherence over chaos. It means silence is not empty for you. It's full of recovery, full of integration, full of return. And that return matters more than most people realize. Because without it, you slowly disappear into performance, into roles, into expectations, into politeness that costs too much. So when you say yes to guests and your body says no, both can be true. You are kind and you are tired. You care and you need space. And there is nothing wrong with that.
And the thing is, this tiredness doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't say, I can't do this. It says, I'll manage. You manage quietly. You manage politely. You manage until your body learns that its needs come second to everyone else's comfort. That's why people like you often become known as easygoing, low maintenance, understanding. But what people don't see is the private cost of that understanding. Because when guests are over, you don't just share space, you share attention. Your attention is split between the conversation and the environment, between the present moment and the awareness of being perceived. You notice how long the silence lasts. You notice when someone shifts on the couch. You notice if the room feels awkward even for a second. Most people don't register these things consciously. You do. And that awareness never turns off. This is why your body doesn't relax fully until you're alone again, because only then does the need to monitor disappear. Aloneness for you is not loneliness, it's alignment. Your thoughts line up. Your emotions settle back into their original shape. Your breathing returns to its natural rhythm. This is also why surprise visits feel worse than planned ones, because surprise removes preparation. Preparation is how your nervous system braces itself. It allows you to slowly shift gears. Without it, the transition is abrupt, and abrupt transitions are stressful for sensitive systems. That sensitivity isn't fragility, it's responsiveness. Your system responds deeply to context, which is why your home matters so much. Every object inside it carries familiarity. Every corner holds a memory of safety. Every routine anchors you. When someone comes in, even respectfully, those anchors loosen a little. You might not even consciously think about it, but your body does. Your body knows that safety is fragile, so it guards it. This guarding often gets misinterpreted. People might say you're distant, or private, or too much in your head. But what you really are is internally spacious, and spaciousness needs protection. People who are loud on the inside don't notice intrusion the same way. People who are quiet on the inside do, because silence is where you live, and silence is easily disturbed. That's why you might feel relief when guests cancel. Not happiness, not excitement, relief. As if a weight you hadn't admitted you were carrying has been set down. And then comes the guilt, because relief is not a socially acceptable emotion in this context. You're supposed to feel disappointed. You're supposed to miss them. So when you don't, you question yourself. But relief doesn't mean lack of love. It means your system just regained access to itself. This is especially common in people who grew up having to be emotionally available early. Maybe you were the listener, the mediator, the one who kept the peace. You learned that other people's presence came with responsibility. So now, presence still feels like responsibility, even when no one is asking anything from you. Your body prepares anyway. This is why even easy guests don't feel easy, because your system doesn't wait for demands, it anticipates them. Anticipation is heavier than action. When the guest is gone, anticipation ends, and your body finally rests. Some people recharge by being around others. You recharge by being unobserved. Neither is superior, but only one of them gets socially praised. So you adapt. You host occasionally, you show up, but you do it knowing there will be a cost afterward. You might feel drained the next day, foggy, less patient. Not because anything bad happened, but because you spent hours slightly outside yourself. People rarely talk about how exhausting it is to not fully inhabit your own body, and hosting does exactly that for people like you. It pulls you just far enough away from yourself that you can't fully settle. That's why the idea of someone staying overnight feels especially heavy, because it extends that displacement. It means you won't wake up alone in your own energy. It means your morning won't be quiet. It means your rituals will be interrupted. Morning, for sensitive people, is sacred. It's when the system resets after sleep, when thoughts reorganize, when emotions recalibrate. Sharing that space feels intimate in a way that isn't always welcome. Again, not because you dislike the person, but because intimacy, for you, includes silence and solitude. This is where misunderstandings often happen in relationships. Partners may interpret your need for space as rejection, as withdrawal, but internally it's maintenance, like charging a phone. You're not pulling away from them, you're returning to yourself. And without that return, you have less to give. This is why forcing yourself to host more doesn't fix the discomfort. Exposure doesn't always heal. Sometimes it just exhausts, especially when the discomfort isn't fear, but misalignment. Your body is telling you something simple and profound. This space is how I survive. Ignoring that message doesn't make you stronger, it makes you depleted. So when you choose to protect your home, you're not being difficult. You are being honest with your biology. You're listening to a system that knows what it needs to stay regulated. And regulation is not optional, it's foundational. Without it, everything else slowly erodes. Patience, warmth, creativity, presence. That's why learning to honor this need is not selfish, it's responsible. You can still love people deeply. You can still show up meaningfully, but you do it on terms that don't cost you your center. And that balance, that quiet negotiation between connection and solitude, is something only very self-aware people ever truly master. And over time, something else happens. You start to notice patterns in yourself that others don't see. You notice that your best thoughts come when no one is around, that your creativity wakes up in silence, that your emotions untangle themselves only when you're alone. You begin to understand that solitude is not a break from life for you. It is life. Everything else is interaction layered on top of it. This is why prolonged hosting feels so invasive. It's not the talking, it's not the cleaning, it's not even the effort to be kind. It's the interruption of an inner process that usually runs uninterrupted in your home. Your mind is always processing something quietly, integrating feelings, replaying moments, making sense of things you didn't have time to feel earlier. When guests arrive, that process pauses, not stops, pauses. And paused processes don't disappear, they wait. So while you're smiling and listening and responding, there's a quiet pressure building underneath, unfinished emotional business sitting in the background. That pressure is subtle, but it accumulates, which is why after guests leave, you often don't want to talk to anyone else, why your phone feels heavy, why even small requests feel overwhelming. You're not antisocial, you're catching up with yourself. Another thing people rarely acknowledge is how predictability plays into safety. Your home is predictable. You know where everything is. You know how the light changes throughout the day. You know which sounds mean something and which don't. Predictability calms the nervous system. Guests introduce uncertainty, not dramatic uncertainty, small uncertainty. Will they want something? Will they stay longer than expected? Will they talk when you want silence? Will they notice something you didn't want seen? Your mind answers none of these questions directly. It just stays alert. Alertness is tiring, especially for people who already live with a heightened baseline of awareness. This is why you may prefer having one person over rather than a group. Groups amplify unpredictability, multiple energies, multiple moods, multiple rhythms. Your system tries to track all of them. It can, but it doesn't enjoy it. You might also notice that you feel less like yourself when people are over. Not fake, just reduced, like parts of you have stepped back. Your humor changes, your voice changes, your posture changes. This isn't conscious, it's adaptive. You become the version of yourself that fits the shared space. But your real self, the one that exists when no one is watching, waits. That waiting is tiring. And when the waiting ends, relief floods in. Again, not joy, relief. Relief that you can sprawl the way you want. Relief that you don't have to explain your silences. Relief that you don't have to be pleasant. Pleasantness is work. For people like you, authenticity requires privacy. This often confuses others. They may say, "But you're so fun when you're out," or "You're so warm in conversations." Yes, because you know how to show up. But showing up is not the same as resting. You show up well because you know you'll eventually get to rest alone. When that rest is threatened, your body protests, quietly, internally. Another layer of this is control, but not in the way people think. It's about controlling stimulus. Your system is sensitive to stimulus, noise, movement, emotional tone. Your home is carefully calibrated to keep stimulus low. Guests raise it, even calm guests. Their presence alone is stimulus, which is why even sitting together doing nothing can feel like something. Your nervous system doesn't turn off just because no one is talking. It stays aware, and awareness without engagement is draining. This is also why you might feel irritated with yourself afterward, why you think, "Why am I like this? Why can't I just enjoy people like others do?" Because you're comparing different nervous systems. Some people regulate through interaction. You regulate away from it. Neither is better, but only one is widely understood. The other is often mislabeled as cold, distant, or introverted in a shallow way. But this isn't about introversion alone. It's about depth. People who live deeply inside themselves require space to do so. Crowding that space creates friction, and friction creates fatigue.
That's why your ideal connection often looks different. You prefer fewer people, deeper conversations, more space between interactions. Not because you don't care, because you care enough to want to be fully present when you do connect. Hosting disrupts that equation. It demands presence when your system may not have the capacity. So you ration yourself. You say yes less often, you delay responses, you hope plans change. Not out of avoidance, out of self-knowledge. And if you've ever wondered whether this makes you difficult or broken, the answer is no. It makes you self-regulating. You're listening to signals most people ignore. Signals that, if ignored long enough, turn into burnout. This is why learning to name this need matters, because unnamed needs turn into shame. Named needs turn into boundaries. Boundaries allow you to stay kind without disappearing. They let you love people without resenting them. They let you choose connection instead of enduring it. And when you finally accept that your home is not a public space, but a private restoration zone, something softens inside you. The guilt lessens. The self-criticism quiets. You stop forcing yourself to be someone you're not. And you begin to design your life around how your system actually works. That doesn't mean isolation. It means intentionality. It means meeting people where it feels safe, inviting them in only when you have the capacity, trusting that your need for solitude is not a flaw to overcome, but a rhythm to respect. Because when you respect it, you show up fuller, calmer, more yourself. And that version of you is the one people actually feel connected to.
If this felt familiar, if at any point it sounded like your own inner voice was being spoken out loud, then know this: you're not alone. A lot of people spend their entire lives thinking there's something wrong with them, that they're too sensitive, that they need too much space, that they don't fit the way they're supposed to. But no one ever tells them this: needing quiet is not a flaw. Protecting your peace is not selfish, and wanting space doesn't mean you don't care. It often means you care deeply enough to know your limits. If this video helped you understand yourself even a little better, go ahead and like it, not for the algorithm, but so this kind of content can reach people who need it too. And if you want more conversations like this about everyday behaviors and the psychology behind them, consider subscribing. No loud motivation here, no pressure to change who you are, just understanding. If you feel comfortable, share your experience in the comments. Sometimes one honest sentence is enough to make someone else feel seen. I'll see you in the next one.